Be yourself today. Don't try and be any other person because all of them are taken. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Neota Igbe.
And whatever you do, sail against the winds, rise above the odds. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
Wow, there's so much pressure on me now. I'm trying to come up with something. How about the humble good morning? Welcome to Lagos. I'm Kayode Kilu. Just how many days to the end of the year now? We're counting down. Good to have you on the show.
Indeed, it's good to have everyone here. And the thing is, Kayode, that thing about being humble, that word, sometimes it's we joke about it a great deal. We say humility, and we laugh when people use that. That's that kind of it, twist it down and say humility. But the thing is, one of the things that caused a lot of pressure on the Nigerian people is that word. The rich are not exactly that humble, and the poor are not exactly that humble. So as we wind down towards the end of the year, and as 2023 winds down, prepare for 2024, let's all think about being humble and talking about all of this. An incident happened in Rivers State. No, it's not political, but it could also be political. You might put it that way. But it has to do with our pipeline, a pipeline explosion that took a number of lives. We continue to hear of stealing of Nigeria's crude, and it's been on and on and on, over and over. But that one about pipelines, where people go to insert things into the pipelines to steal crude or to steal petrol. Oh, the risk that people take for survival sometimes. And this is not for survival. And from the footage there, this is not for survival. This is for crime. This is a crime. And see the number of lives that have been taken. But also imagine the threat or the impact on the environment, the negative impact on the environment. When would these stop? Because we keep talking about people who are stealing Nigeria's crude, the crude theft and the impact it's having on the environment, the insertions into the pipelines from different angles. One time the NNPCL talked about hundreds of insertions into Nigeria's pipelines. Unless we get to that point where we do proper consequence management, we may never see the end to all of some of these things, or indeed all of these crimes, where we see that you do wrong, you pay the price for that wrong. Not the ultimate price in this case, where people, and I'm sure some of them innocent people, lost their lives. But you do the crime, you do the time. Until we get to that point, we may not see an end to all of these things. But Kayode and Bukola, I don't know where your thoughts are, but I am not happy about this, coupled with all the other things that are going wrong in our country, that are being done wrong in our country, that should be done right. I think this, in 2024, we should do different, really.
Well, Neota, the question is, will we do differently in 2024? You know, it emerged from the ongoing probe at the National Assembly that Nigeria is losing about 1.2 trillion naira to crude oil theft. I believe in the second quarter of the year or thereabout, it has to, have been a figure that is emerging from the year 2023. So what are we doing about it? When the group managing director of the NNPCL appeared before the National Assembly, the Senate hearing particularly, he described what's going on in the Niger Delta as a calamity, and we could talk a lot about what's going on there, when pipeline vandals go, to breach the stream, they go with sophisticated equipment. It can only, the vandalism can only be perpetrated by people who have the means, who have the resources. And, the conversation is continuing in the Niger Delta area when the authorities accuse the communities of being complicit. The communities, when you interact with them, their defense is that they don't even have the resources to be able to breach these pipelines, that it's only people who have the means, it's only people who, are associated with the authorities that can deploy the resources to breach these pipelines. And how do you find those illegal refineries? Who has the amount of money that you require to set up those illegal refineries. And somehow these products go into the market as what we call fire. They are bound in the Niger Delta area. Who's investigating? The people in the community also accuse the security agencies of being complicit in the breach of the pipelines. So it's as if we know what we are supposed to do when it comes to checking crude oil theft, but we're not doing it. Who's interrogating the oil companies, as well, when, we had that major investigation and discovered pipelines connected to a major oil company where crude oil theft had been ongoing for years. What's the outcome of that? It's as if, the system continues to work against itself over and over again. We can't continue to do something the same way, and expect a different result. So what's going to happen in 2024? Will the authorities go after those who are sabotaging Nigeria's economy? Coyote.
Big question, because if you'll expect that the security agencies will be the ones going after the saboteurs. But when we have communities, even government officials saying, well, the security agencies are also involved, and you wonder who's going to go after the security agencies. And that is something that has come up a lot. But, putting figures to this might help us understand what kind of mess we're in. The GCU of the NNPCL said that there are over 4,800 illegal connections across the country. 4,800, as much as 300 per few kilometers. And that's how we put it. And you think about it, we have a budget that essentially has as its backbone what comes out of our crude oil, essentially what comes out of the oil fields and the rest. We have assumptions in the budget. The price of crude is going down. So obviously we can't make all of the money we ought to make from crude with the current price of crude on the international market. And then our production is not doing as well as it ought to. Do the math. It essentially means that if things go on this way, we cannot even meet up with the projection that we set for a budget. Mind you, the money will not cover the whole budget. We're borrowing to augment that. But even what it is meant to cover at this rate might not even cover it. So where does that leave us as a nation? I know that security agencies have also come out to say, well, it's just a few bad eggs and the rest. Arrest those few bad eggs. Put them out there. Let them be prosecuted. Make them an example to others, because we know how lucrative this business is. This is a business you trade in foreign exchange. Essentially, you trade in dollars. So we know how lucrative it is, and we know how much a lot of people will give anything literally to ensure that this continues. But we need to put our foot down and say enough is enough as a nation. If not for anything, for the good of our budget, fact that we'll not be able to afford the things we want to afford if we want to get this renewed hope on track, as the president has said. It is sad that people have died. At least 19 people died. But maybe we should take a listen to one of the community leaders speaking about this. Perhaps this might even drive the message home the more, since we're in a time of reflection, I imagine. So take a listen. We'll be back.
We lost about 20 persons, others injured. We are pleading on the federal government and NIOC to come and put these things in order. And also we the OSPAC, we are also willing to assist NIOC and the federal government of Nigeria to also see how we can secure these facilities. It is very wrong for our people to be losing their life, our youths, precisely, the young ones, to be losing their life in course of doing bunkering. We are pleading with the federal government to come and fix these things, the NIOC to come and fix their facilities, so that the operation will continue. And also pleading with the youth to take it very easy in the course of looking for money.
That happened in Onelga, Agba, Egwemandoni local government area, which is usually stylized as Onelga. Young people involved, they've lost their lives. It's very sad. They say that security agents are also conniving. So we've put that out there yet again. The appropriate agencies and even the communities involved I do hope that this is yet another wake-up call before things get out of hand.
Perhaps what's even more tragic is the impact of, this bunkering on the atmosphere. An Oil Development Commission set up in Bayelsa State, has come up with a report, and one significant aspect of that report is the increase in the amount of respiratory illnesses in that state alone, which is the leading cause of death, in most of the communities. So who's thinking? As I said, it's a system that is working against itself. And Kade, you talked about numbers. Imagine if Nigeria were able to, shore up its oil production quota. Perhaps if OPEC Plus, gave it the opportunity to produce 2 million barrels of crude per day. Look at the numbers, and the revenue that will come to the country. The authorities should also think in that direction, and we'll get ahead in a lot of our economic targets, our growth projection rates, and surpass even the projection put forward by the international community for Nigeria's economy. Again, the question or the issue about resolve is what is key here. Is Nigeria resolved to do the right thing? Nyota.
The resolution to do the right thing is both for everyone, both the led and the leadership. Because as they say, the pipelines are there, but the insertions of those pipelines most times are done by people that have the know-how. Otherwise, there'll be more explosions than there are already, if it's just anybody that goes to try to insert anything to this pipeline. So it's the people that know the know-how, and they know themselves. And guess what? Some authorities do know who these people are. The question is, who will bail the cat? We need, as we said, we need to change in 2024. Otherwise, things might get worse than they are. But let's leave that for a moment, as sad as it may be. Go look at what some of the papers are saying. We're starting out with the Vanguard newspaper, and this is what they lead with, the Plateau story. Death toll hits 195, hundreds of houses razed. Story continues on page 5. It says 148, the breakdown, 148 in Bokkos, 19 in Mangu, 27 in Barkin Ladi, 1,290 houses in Bokkos, 1 in Mangu burnt, Barkin Ladi yet to be ascertained. The blaming PDP slams APC FG for emboldening a terrorist, condemns needless death over 5,000 Nigerians since May. Sultan blows hot, asks task government to end insecurity. Tinubu deeply shaken by killings in Plateau. That's coming from the Vice President. Approves immediate humanitarian support for victims. Will collaborate to end the cycle of violence. That's all the writers you find around that story, that painful story. On page 5, you get more of the details in detail. But below that, it's a very exciting picture of the carnival in Calabar. Today is the 28th. I think today is the main event. But to see the picture of the children there looking real colorful in their carnival attire. So that's, you see the contrast? Top story sad, the picture there, real bright, speaks of a future, a bright and exciting future. Let's hope it stays that way. But below that, another one, Saturday in Ondo, how Akeredolu died at 67. That's the late governor of Ondo State that died yesterday. No peace, no democracy dividends, Ganduje tells Benue APC leaders. Those are the stories on the front page, the main stories on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. It's a Thursday, but we'll leave Mr. and Mrs. and look at a bit of sports. AFCON 2023, Pizarro squad ready, says Babayaro. That is what's leading on the sports side. If we could just flip that paper, you see the back of the sports, that's Vanguard Sports. And above, just beside the nameplate, you see down, Osimhen tops Africa's all-star rich list. But then, another exciting one for Nigerian football fans. Super Eagles end 2023 as most valuable national team in Africa. Wow. 13th in the world. Interesting. But let's hope that 2023 will also see Nigeria lifting the Africa Cup of Nations trophy as we go out there. But that's it from Vanguard newspaper.
And up next this morning is the Nigerian Tribune. You know, while some states are just celebrating and, you know, they're having a colorful Yuletide, it's not the same in Ondo State, where they finally have closure following a long drawn battle with illness. That's of the governor now, who has passed on yesterday. And that's what the Nigerian Tribune is leading with on its front page. Look at it. There's a big tribute there from the president. Rotimi Akeredolu, 21st July 1956 to 27 December 2003. And there are a few riders. How he died in Germany of prostate cancer. He'll be missed for his courageous standpoint on issues of structure of Nigeria, as ascribed to Afenifere. Tinubu, Buhari, governors, Atiku, traditional rulers, Jimo Ibrahim, Ganduje, others pay tributes. And the president's tribute is quite touching. And perhaps I should just read it, a short one. Here I am with the difficult job of singing a dirge for Oluwarotimi Odunayo Akeredolu, my beloved brother, confidant, political soulmate, and governor of Ondo State. In a challenging moment of our statehood, when marauding agents of darkness spreading their tentacles across our country, Rotimi was a strong voice in wilderness, calling us to rethink our security architecture so we can have a more secure nation. His unrelenting advocacy led to the birth of the local police in the Southwest. And of course, the Oyo State governor also recalled how he worked assiduously with the late governor to come up with the Amotekun Southwest Security Initiative. May his soul rest in peace. Let's leave it there for the Nigerian Tribune.
The Guardian newspaper has this one also on the death of a former governor of Ondo State. And you see, end of an era, sunset for Akeredolu, new dawn for Lucky Aiyedatiwa. And there's an image of the former governor, late, now waving, perhaps just to tell the story the more. And you see the new governor just right there on a seat. There are some images of his swearing in, also on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. And you know, I think Amotekun was trending a lot yesterday because it was one of the causes, if I can say, that he championed, particularly for the Southwest region. And I recall when there were issues of, you know, herders, people camping in the forests and the rest, and you know, the governors had to rally together. He, of course, leading that. I think one of the best gifts you can give, or one of the best ways to honor his memory, is to ensure that that idea of getting security to the grassroots, having, you know, structures of security aside what you have at the federal level. I think one of the best ways to preserve his memory is to ensure that that continues to thrive, or build on it and ensure that, I mean, we've seen what happened in Plateau State, for example, and a lot of people have said you need to, of course, rethink that security architecture, ensure that the people own it the more, call it community policing, state police, what have you, but ensure that security is more local. And I think that's something that this government and, well, the president talked about it, so I do hope that this is a way to go. And you see, Tinubu seeks council's monarch's support for development. Does that include security as well? Well, we'll wait to find out. Page 5 is beholding meetings. The holiday notwithstanding, there was another meeting, stakeholders meeting in Lagos yesterday, which the president, of course, held. So we'll wait to see what comes out of all of those meetings. He met with the NGF. He's met with Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka, who said he brought a 7-point agenda for the president. I know the president has his own 8-point agenda, so 7-point agenda meets 8-point agenda. What comes out of it?
And speaking of immortalizing the governor, even Afenifere is recalling his contributions to the conversation on restructuring. Yeah. So perhaps a way, you know, to preserve the memory of the former governor is for, you know, an implementation of, you know, restructuring some of those resolutions that the National Assembly has worked on during the constitutional review. State police, for instance.
Absolutely, absolutely. A couple of more stories on the front page. Just this one as well. It was a sad day. Civil society groups, lawyers mourn Naba. That's also on the front page, as well as Akeredolu. So let's leave it there for the Guardian newspaper.
The Observer newspaper is the one I have here now, and they also have that story about the Plateau killings. This time is Mufwang hints at culprits as Tinubu rallies security forces. That's what the Nigerian Observer is leading with. With the writer, FG states have shared responsibility for peace, stability, credited to the president. Can others express outrage? Beside the nameplate there, it's something that would excite a lot of people, especially those who traveled or are traveling for the festive season. It says more passengers benefit from FG's 50% fare cut. I guess the teething problems have been taken care of, so it's now a bit more easier. Go to page 2 and get the details of that story, how the people are benefiting. And then below that, you have by-elections. PDP fixes January 9 for primaries. Pegs Senate form at 3.5 and reps at 2.5. And that's it from the Nigerian Observer.
Daily Trust newspaper this morning, and someone is saying something very important from the front page of Daily Trust. Of course, we've trailed on the demise of late Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, and that's also what's on the front page of Daily Trust. But let's go to the bottom strip where we have, someone speaking. Bandits always a step ahead of government. That's ascribed to the Sultan of Sokoto. That's a huge one. And there are a few riders. Embrace peace, stop killings, Shettima tells Plateau people. Of course, he was in Plateau yesterday, and the governor of the state was encouraged and, talked about that being a testament to the commitment and political resolve of the administration to fight against banditry. ACF calls for state of emergency in banditry-prone communities. Northern reps seek support for victims. It will seem like there's more that can be done going by some of the revelations coming from Plateau State. So it's much more than, imposing a state of emergency, but going after the bandits. I mean, if they, have overridden 64 communities and have taken possession of schools illegally for years, it means that, the authorities know where they are and the communities can help. So what's being done in that regard? Let's leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
Daily Independent has, this one, and it's, we can call it company news. So what have you? Heritage Bank in futile effort at attracting strategic investors. Nigerian banks remain safe, sound, CBN assures. So that's something that has been on for a while, but the CBN governor came out to say, well, your funds are safe. And for a lot of people, they were wondering what prompted that. I thought that was a given, but this gives more context to that statement. And there you see, 5 months after, Lagos Airport runway light thieves still unknown. We've reached over 90% reinstallation. Fan source. Fan should make report of investigation public. That's according to stakeholders. But yes, this is worth paying attention to. So whatever happened to these CCTVs, if there were, we know how safe, how secure an airport should be, ought to be, or usually is in any case. So why was it easy to steal runway lights? And still, 5 months after, the culprits have not been arrested. So lots of questions to answer, but of course this doesn't look good at all. I mean, we have to say this, it doesn't look good at all. You see this one, we're working to turn around Nigeria's economic fortunes. It's coming from President Tinubu. I think he's had to make that statement a lot of recent, and you'll understand why. Because a lot of people look at the economy, they go to the market, look into their pockets, and what they see is not good at all.
Far from a turnaround.
At all. So perhaps we need to go beyond just saying these things. Yes, hope is good, absolutely. Nobody is taking that away from the president. But then hope would naturally be followed by some sort of proof, right? Mm-hmm. At least something that looks like there is light at the end of a tunnel. There should be some sort of progression in the brightness. But
well, according to Father Kuka, the president should reignite our hope.
There you go. And that's it with Daily Independent.
Well, guys, as they say, as long as you're alive, there's hope. So that light you're looking to see, the brightening of the light as the days go by, is the fact that you woke up every morning and you're breathing. Maybe we should take it from that angle, still give and be patient in hope, waiting. But let's see. This Nigeria is the next paper that we have here. And it leads with that story of the passing of two giants. It says, grief as two giants fall same day, 1 hour apart. Nigerians from all walks of life mourn the passing of Ondo Governor Akeredolu and ex-speaker Naaba. Tinubu Aketi was my beloved brother, friend, and confidant. Aiyedatiwa takes oath as Ondo Governor. Ex-speaker buried in Kanu. Those are the writers to that lead story. And you see the picture of the two men there. But beside those pictures, lawyer petitions head of service as HOS over continuous service of police officers due for retirement. Some that are due to have retired are still serving. So the lawyer is petitioning the head of service to look into it. Check page 13 for more details on that one. Go on retirement. There's a story there about FEMA, that's the FCT, Emergency Management Agency, and their activities in the year 2023. But below that, you have this one. INEC tells 4 directors to go on retirement, page 8. That story on FEMA is on page 12. We won't rest until you get justice, Shetima assures Plateau community. President approves immediate humanitarian support for victims of Plateau massacre. That's how they captioned that story, is on page 6. And beside the nameplate, the last one there says, CBN investigator insists Lemo others must appear before the panel. Oof. Well, let's hope all of this sorts out. That story is on page 16, and we will take a moment as we leave.
2023 began with Nigerians queuing for hours and at other scenarios paying for cash because of Naira scarcity, a spillover from the 2022 Naira redesign policy, which the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, had initiated in October 2022.
You will all recall that on the 26th of October 2022, the Central Bank of Nigeria received the approval of President Muhammadu Buhari to redesign the 200 Naira, 500 Naira, and 1,000 Naira Nigerian banknotes. By that approval, the redesigned banknotes will circulate concurrently with the old notes up to January 31, 2023, after which date, the old note loses their legal tender status.
This created uncertainty in an economy where cash remains king.
We are really facing a very critical time as manufacturers now.
In November 2023, the Supreme Court ordered that the old notes remain legal tender indefinitely to be used alongside the new notes. However, this has not done enough to allay the fears of cash shortage as incidents of scarcity again resurfaced in December 2023. And while Nigerians were dealing with the economic and social disruptions that came with the policy, on the one hand, they had to gear up for the general elections, which had been fixed for between February and March 2023.
Tinubu Bola Ahmed is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected. Thank you.
And just when certainty and stability was returning with the conclusion of the elections, the President Bola Tinubu made an announcement which had been hanging in the air.
First subsidy is gone.
The consequences of the removal of subsidy was not limited to hiking petrol prices, but as expected, it spread to food prices. Headline inflation rose to 22.41% in May from 22.22% in April 2023, while food prices increased to 24.82% in May from 24.61% in April. These have since increased to 28.2% for the headline inflation, and food inflation is at 32.84%, both for November 2023.
In any reasonable person's mind that Nigeria needs to remove the subsidy to remove the drag on our revenue of the fiscal drag we have through the subsidy. But the point is that on whose shoulder will the hurt be? Should the government continue to behave as if there's no problem?
Another major pronouncement of the president was the unification of the various foreign exchange windows.
Central Bank must work towards a unified exchange rate.
However, this has been difficult to achieve, as the naira to the dollar, which had gone from less than 500 naira for a dollar in May 2023 to more than 1,000 naira to a dollar by December 2023. The continued squeeze in the FX space and drop in the value of the naira has discouraged the operations of foreign companies, as some have either closed shop or changed operating model to import only. The pinch is also felt in the aviation sector, where, according to the International Air Transport Association, IATA, as of August 2023, Nigeria accounts for $783 million of airlines' blocked funds, with the threat of foreign airlines exiting the country still on. The hike in jet fuel was another aftermath of the shortage of FX and drop in the value of the naira. Side for 2023, however, lies in the Nigeria's equity market. Investors seem to embrace the victory of President Tinubu as benchmark indicator of performance surged from 50,000 level to above 72,000 level in December 2023. As 2023 draws to a close and Nigerians look forward to 2024, they expect to get some benefit from some of those economic reforms of President Bola Tinubu, which has been applauded by both the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, such as benefits from the removal of fuel subsidy and the unification of the FX windows, among others. Ini John Mekwa, Channels Television News.
The word economy is borrowed from the Greek word oikonomia, which essentially means management of household. How well have we been able to manage this household of Nigeria in the area of, economy? Right. That's our focus on the program this morning. It concerns you and I, so let's do this together, shall we? We have joining us on the program to do this, as you've seen right there, Professor Kenny Faye, development economist and lead consultant, ECOWAS Commission. It's good to have you on the program, Prof.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
And right here in our Lagos studio is Mr. Paul Alaji, senior economist, SPM Professionals, fellow International Management Consultants Board, USA, and fellow Institute of Economists, Nigeria. It's good to have you on the program.
Good morning, and thank you so very much for having me.
And gentlemen,
compliment of the season.
Well, you took that right out of my mouth. I was going to say compliments of the season. Well, when it comes
to... Go ahead anyway.
Well, you don't trust me anymore.
I still do.
But, it's good we're smiling, having a good laugh. Because when it comes to the economy, there's that saying that the economy is not smiling, really, in Nigeria. And I'd like to begin with Professor Kenny Faye, who's joining us virtually this morning. I know that you also have, data about the sub-region by virtue of your position. But let's talk about Nigeria. Economy-wise, how would you describe 2023 for Nigeria as a nation?
Well, our country has been ailing. Our economy has been ailing for quite some time. But what happened in the middle of 2023 is that the new administration tired the hornet's nest. And what that means is that we faced the stark reality of where we are. And what that now meant is that we have to switch to managing either expectations or managing speculation, depending on which macroeconomic index you are looking at. You take them one by one, you will know whether you are managing expectation here or whether you are managing speculation. Obviously, when you come to infrastructure, it's about expectations, what people's expectation. You come to inflation, it's about managing speculation in the economy, especially the way it has hit the forex. We've come to food insecurity, is about people's expectation. There are things we can do, there are many things we couldn't do. You come to insecurity, you come to economic growth, you come to exchange rate, you come to health sustainability. It's all about managing the expectations of people. So each one presents its own unique challenges, but I can tell you that most of the solutions that you actually need are here and now. It depends on how much of it that we are willing to engage. But one thing that you cannot take away from the administration is that the political leadership has demonstrated a very strong desire to do something positive. Obviously, many decisions have been taken. When you stare the hornet's nest, what it means is that you actually, the worst case scenario stares on your face. And then the issue now is, what measures have you been taking to contain these? And then how soon will they kick in? Many measures are in place, but how soon will they translate to better standards of living, lower prices? Obviously, if you see, for example, the action taken on fuel subsidy removal, as badly as it has hurt and continues to hurt, but at least you can begin to see light in the end of the tunnel when NNPC is now switching on the refinery, and then you now see Dangote refinery coming in. So it doesn't spell the end of the crisis around fuel subsidy, because it goes beyond just bringing in PMS. The price rise has to be managed because it does affect transport. It knocks up, transport is almost threefold increase in the price of transporting the goods and the grains. And on the other hand, those who are manufacturing, it still affects them. The high price of the petrol, diesel still adds substantially to the input costs. But these are some of the things that we will unpack in the discussion. Right. But what I can say is that there is hope. We can't give up hope. We cannot give up Nigeria for anybody. There is hope. But as we go through the discussion, we'll see where those rays of hope lie, and then where we can do more to help our country. But it's not an easy time for us.
Well, I know that the lifeblood of economics is data, putting figure to issues. That way, it's easy to approach, you're able to proffer solutions, and of course, monitor if things have gotten better or otherwise. And for you, looking at Nigeria's economy this year, what kind of rating would you give it? Would you describe it as good? Would you describe it as excellent or otherwise, on the one hand? On the second hand is, you talked about some of those tough decisions that the government had to make, staring the hornet's nest, as you put it. I think a lot of people might be on the same page with government saying tough decisions need to be made for our country, Nigeria. We've seen how we've carried on for years. But I think the question for a lot of people is, were they well thought out? And I'm talking about the removal of subsidy, the actions that followed. Did it look like the government actually thought out these decisions? For a lot of people, they thought this wasn't hitting the ground running. We can talk about the forex as well. Was it well thought out? Did it look like the government had its acts together when it was making that decision, such that it had planned for at least some of the eventualities that followed? Prof.
Actually, you are quite right. The decisions that we are taking were necessary. They were absolutely necessary because the economy was pushed to the cliff. So, something like fuel subsidy, everybody has been saying that for over 10 years. So that decision was necessary. But there are questions about the extent to which they were thought out. We all agree on that. In many programs, we keep saying that, oh, this is desirable. You see, sometimes you can say some of these steps are necessary but not sufficient. But the fact of the matter is that some of them could have been thought out a lot more, a lot better. If you take these items one by one, if you look at insecurity, people still, in terms of expectation, believe that there is yet to be dealt a decisive blow to insecurity. So it lingers in such a way that it frustrates, and people are still expecting that we need to have a decisive blow on insecurity. On food insecurity, again, people are saying, wait a minute, hunger is staring at our face. And I think the administration appreciates that. That's why they now announce a state of emergency. But the question is this: solutions actually do exist. Solutions to food do exist in the country. And you find that more around the application of technology, application of mechanization, making sure that the security supports the process, and then also progressive value addition. Because, you can say anything you want to say. If you are not adding value, then forget it. You're going to be on this for a very, very long time to come. You look at inflation, it scares investors. People is eroded our purchasing power. It has reduced standards of living of our people. It has even rushed more people into poverty. So, and you look at infrastructure, yes, you can see some good things actually in infrastructure. You've seen the opening of the second Niger Bridge. You've seen decisive investment in the roads, especially Lagos, Ibadan Road, and some of those. So there are work in progress in every highway in the country. You have work in progress, and the government is doing whatever they can to settle. But there is work in progress everywhere. It's not too good yet. We haven't completed most of them, but there is work in progress.
Right.
You look at areas like exchange rate. Now that is a much more troublesome one, because you have to balance the supply of forex to the demand for forex. All the debate tends to be around the demand, and not very much is said about the supply of forex. And then we need to do a lot more in that area.
So, Prof.
So, on balance, I think we are achieving more success than failure. Right. It's a work in progress. It's a work in progress.
So, poor, below average, good, very good, excellent. What's your rating of the economy this year?
Well, I would say that it could get better.
Is that very good? Is that excellent?
That's good.
That's good.
It will get better.
Right.
It will get, because you've laid the foundation for the success you are going to see in 2014.
All right.
And it takes time. It takes time for these measures to come into effect.
Thank you, Prof.
It takes time.
Let me come to Mr. Alhaji now. Poor, below average, good, very good, excellent. How would you describe the economy this year, and perhaps contextualize it as well?
So we woke up 1st of January 2023 when we knew at that time that we're going to have some cash crisis. Towards the end of January, it became even real. I remember the popular video I saw on your screen where someone said, pressure tiwa. Right. I really don't know what that means. And for a lot of people, especially SMEs, they needed their money. We started seeing men going naked in banks. It was a horrible thing to behold. On national television, we started seeing some on social media. That was how we started this year. In crisis, cash crunch, that was really not necessary. I remember I granted the interview, you're part of the crew, and you have asked, must we do this now? Because the crisis was more potent. I saw your correspondent going towards somewhere in Ogun State, also interviewing people to feel their pulse. And I tell you immediately, former president, they met with President Buhari. We also saw governors who were not particularly pleased. And at FEC, they agreed that let both old currency and new currency be spent side by side. Remember, President Buhari did a revise that old 200 naira note should still be in the economy. But thank God for the Supreme Court eventually that put a clarity to that. After that, we went into election. And of course, we saw what happened during the election. Whether election was perfect is another conversation entirely. We are not talking about politics.
The economies of election.
Economies of election. Good enough, President Tinubu emerged as the winner of the election. And we saw what World Bank reported. World Bank quickly gave us a report in June to say that President Buhari is gone truly, but he has already given us a parting shot of 4 million poor people. And they also projected that if President Tinubu is not careful, by 31st December this year, 5.1 million people will be poor. Not my figure, please. I'm not the one that made that.
You mean an
projection. Additional 5.1 million between 29th of May 2023 to 31st of December 2023. Then President Buhari, his first economic policy was that subsidy is gone.
That's President Tinubu.
President Tinubu, I beg your pardon. Subsidy is gone. Immediately, filling stations started changing their prices. It was surprising that, hey, wait, the stock you had, nobody was willing to deal with the stock. The prices changed across, but a week after, we saw about 2 weeks after, because after that, Mr. Emefiele left office, we had the acting central bank governor. We heard about unification of currency. After that, we saw 48 items that were formerly out of the list. They came back to the list. And in spite of all of this, inflation continued to soar. In fact, it grew from 21.28% to above 28%. That is what we have to grapple with. So as all of these activities were going up, inflation continued to mount. It climbed above Cocoa House, which was about 26-story building. Now it's about 28-story, peeping into the 30th floor. I hope it will not get to the height of Burj Khalifa someday. So that said, as inflation continued to increase, President Bola Tinubu felt it's important for him to have ministers. We saw ministers into different ministries, even though some persons felt that the number of ministries we have is too large compared to the reality. But as if that were not enough, we saw legislature bought new set of cars in an economy where we just said we want to present supplementary budgets to borrow money to do what? Perhaps to import vehicles. Where is the money going to? Are we going to use it to develop our economy, or we're going to use it to develop other economy by buying cars from them? What happens to all the ones that we have bought? But some things happen all through the year. Oil theft was a recurrent decimal all through the year, and it's something to worry about. Then some people are 12% of the world poor people. They decided to live in Nigeria in 2023. And quite a number of other things. What happened to exchange rate, which is another major macro parameter we need to look at? Official rate about 400, parallel market about 600. That has been doubled. Official rate about 800, parallel market rate about 1,200. We also saw that gross domestic product, which we also use to measure growth in Nigeria, is slightly above 2%. Meanwhile, population is between 2.65% to 3%. That's the population growth rate. So we are really not growing.
So is that poor, below average, good?
Well,
very good.
All the viewers of this program know that we are certainly not up to average. And I will not want to blame the current president. And he got to office in few months ago. He's barely 7 months in office. And he also said he has felt the pulse of Nigeria. Recall that one of the responses the governor gave was to share bag of rice, even though we're against it. In fact, the president at first said that they were going to give monies to Nigeria. And about 4 people around Nigeria that had space in the national media said that will not be a good policy. And I was happy when I saw the president reversed that decision, that they were going to come up with a new strategy. The next thing we saw...
Mr. Alaje, your diplomacy is appreciated, but we know that it's, a continuing administration. You know what they say in governance, that there should be continuity. So it's the same APC-led government. So I'd like you to be categorical. Would you be giving the economic policies of the administration, when you reflect on the past year, an above-average mark, or
I said it's below
average?
It's below average. In fact, the last administration, if you check the economic performance, I will tell you, other than infrastructure in few areas, Nigeria motorable road, when you say you can use, it's less than 50%. You can ask people, this is a national television station, you can ask people that have traveled to their different homes, how motorable, how good the roads are. And that does not mean President Buhari did not do anything. It also does not mean President Tinubu is not doing anything. We need about $100 billion, to go into our infrastructure sector. But how much are we really generating in revenue? Which is another thing President Tinubu's team need to pay attention to. Recall that about 5 to 6 weeks ago, the Minister of Finance of the current administration mentioned that 98% of all revenues is used to service debt. And this debt, unfortunately, is increasing. You ask me why, even though we may not be borrowing more, the moment we devalue our naira, in the name of unification, all the monies we borrow that are external debt, the value has now increased. So if you have, for instance, if we are owing $20 billion, for instance, in external debt, now the value in naira, also for instance, let's say is about 2 trillion naira. You now multiply it by 2 to 4 trillion naira. Where is the revenue? Where are we going to pay from? Are we going to pay using dollar or naira? It is the same naira. And that is why we say when you make economic policy, always remember that you cannot clap with one hand. You have to balance the two sides. You have to observe the two sides so that it does not come back hurting us. Yes, so the good news is that with all of these policy, subsidy removal, unification of naira, the revenue that is available to the federation has increased significantly, between 300 to 500 billion naira. It has now increased to between 900 to 1.1 trillion. And I'm not sure if at FAC $1 trillion has been shared before. Revenue has been shared. So what should we be looking at? Is it possible for government to deploy most of this money into infrastructure? Unfortunately, the federal government that champions some of this economic policy cannot force the states how to spend their money. But where are the poverty? Are the poverty in Abuja, or are they where in Shashangi, or where exactly are people poor? These are conversations that I think Fetch you have.
Perhaps that's the aspect of hope that Professor Ife is talking about. The devaluation of the naira, the FX reforms have led to significant increase in government revenue in terms of tax payment, income from company to the federation account and all of that. But what does this mean for overall economic planning, particularly for the budget? What are the implications for the collective aspirations of the people when you look at that increase in revenue as reflected in the ambitious budget that the government has put forward for 2024?
Well, let me first say that I differ with Prof on devaluation of naira. You see, as a Keynesian economist, if you want to destroy people, first destroy their currency. Before the Japan economy was crushed, it was first the currency of Japan that was affected. And we all know, economics across this country, that people's purchasing power has been emaciated. Before you devalue your currency, first question, economic theory, before you even go to apply, taught us is that what are you exporting? What are we exporting as a nation? Crude, to a large extent. Even the crude is stolen. And we don't have the capacity to protect our own resources. So, saying that will help us to a large extent, I don't completely agree with that. But the money we would have used in paying subsidy is what we have saved. And I agree with that 100%. And that is what we expect, that authorities will reallocate judiciously into infrastructure in helping people that are poor to come out of poverty, penury, and deprivation.
Do you see it in the 2024 budget in terms of allocation to meet the collective aspirations of Nigerians?
I tell you that I've looked at not just the federal government budget, but a lot of states that their budget have been passed. We have to struggle to get some of these states in our hands. I can tell you that to a large extent, there is no departure from the past. You know, we still see 70-30, 80-20 for most of the states, apart from very few states that are trying to make a complete turnaround in terms of their budget. Most states are still voting more to recurrent expenditure. Now, it is a sign of insanity to keep doing the same thing and expect a major turnaround. So, do I think 2024 will be different? Except we do something different. But if you continue to do what we did in 2023, I can tell, because right now, most community are still complaining of what we started with in January. What was it? Cash scarcity is back. So, it's like going around in cycles without making any appreciable movement. That is what we're experiencing. So I can tell you that the allocation that the state is in different state assemblies and it's at the National Assembly, we need to do more than all of those. Even if we want to have conversation on the budget, is a different conversation entirely, because you cannot have an economy that we said that 98% of our revenue is spent to service debt, and we are looking at borrowing more. What does that mean? It means World Bank staff report that was published in 2022, which states that by 2025, Nigeria will need to borrow to service debt. What does that mean? We will not have any money for infrastructure. We will not have any money for recurrent expenditure. To now service debt, which is one of the key things we must do, we need to borrow money to do
What
this.
about the report of the current reduction in debt, following the redemption of the Eurobond by the Debt Management Office? Does it offer some hope?
Yeah, it does. It offers some hope, but we are also going to get into about 6 trillion naira debt from the 2024 budget. So will the debt increase at the end of next year? Of course, it's going to increase. That's what the report says.
I'd like to also explore another aspect of, hope that the FX reforms, are bringing. But let's take this to Abuja. Nyota has some questions for you. Nyota.
Thank you very much, Bukola. I'll start out with a question to Professor Kenife. Prof, thank you for coming in this morning. There was something you said earlier in your submission. You talked about managing expectations and managing speculations. So I know you spoke profusely about that, but if you look at the amount of money that was shared, for instance, in Mr. Alaje talking about the valuation of the Naira and how the Japanese economy that was destroyed when their currency was dealt with, but of course the Japanese economy is back on now. There was an increase in the revenue, in the amount of money that was shared in December between the federal, state, and local government, which is almost about multiples of what was shared in the month of May of 2023. It points to an increase in revenue. And one of the things we've had back and forth in the Nigerian economy is a question of revenue, that there's not enough revenue coming in. What does it say of the policies of government so far, if we see that it looks as if the monies that are being shared between the three tiers of government have increased as at December? What does it say about what government's doing?
Well, the savings from the subsidy removal obviously has to go somewhere. And I'm glad that part of it is going to the states, because who wears the shoe knows where it pinches the most, and it is the states that wear those shoes that are closest to the poorest people and the MSMEs and the ground. So they get a lion's share of that savings, And then of course there is some emphasis on leveling the playing field by doing some palliatives. Not that I'm an apostle of palliatives, but sometimes you have to understand that in economic development, you run two lanes. There is a lane, which is the fast lane for those who are highly entrepreneurial, give them little push and they generate the economy and regenerate it. But then there are those who are really at the bottom of the ladder, that their life depends on whatever you can give them to survive to the following day. So you've got to have a two-lane traffic when you're dealing with economic development. So yes, it was helpful, but don't forget that some of that additional increase may well come from the devaluation of the country's naira anyway, and then the inflation, because inflation actually renders a lot of those increase, helpless. That's what I mean. So, but by and large, how it is applied is encouraging, but we have to do more. And you can see some states like Enugu State, their capital component is over 70%. If you look at Lagos, Lagos is always over 50% anyway on capital. So many states are upping their game in terms of capital investment. And then I like what I saw about health, getting as much as 7% of the budget. Now that was good. I hope education would have come to the same level, because that means that we are beginning to recognize that we have to invest in human resource development. And it was such a pity that we left that so neglected for a long, long time. Now, the issue that Paul mentioned about, I'm not saying that I support the devaluation. I didn't say that. Devaluation was forced on us by the economic circumstances. inflation is being part of it, foreign exchange scarcity being part of it, all kinds of things forced it upon us. And so it's about managing that situation, And one more thing, of course, about the infrastructure that Paul mentioned. We began, you have to see the level of decay of the infrastructure, where we are 30% to 35% at the most stock of our infrastructure. Well, compare that to South Africa, that is over 80%. So, we have had huge neglect over 30 years of investment in the infrastructure. So it's about scratching the surface. We are putting money, but it's not enough. It's nowhere near enough.
Okay.
So we are going to continue to suffer. Rail has not worked. Rail is the cheapest way of moving heavy goods across long distances. To move goods from Katsina to Lagos used to be just one day. Now,
if I may come in here, in development economics, and someone had used this example before of how some societies had to shut out the world outside, look inwards and find the products, local products that they have that they can develop and then take out to the world. Now, you said devaluation was forced on us. Is it possible that our leaders or our systems could have stopped? Look inwards. What local products do we have aside from crude? I mean, you go to different parts of the country, you find different people creating different products and package those products for the markets outside. Do you think that was considered? And how is it that it's not even being looked at carefully?
I didn't get the latter part of your question. If you can just repeat that, please.
I'm talking about looking inwards to find products, local products that Nigeria has in the different parts of this country, in different pockets. You find manufacturing going on, maybe in small scale. Do you think that may have made a difference if we had looked in, pick up those local products, invest in those ones, and then take it out to the world? Would that have made a difference to our economy?
Oh, absolutely. Unlocking the potentials in the economy. There are measures. For example, if you listen to the speech of the president on the first day, he talked about, credit. He talked about credit creation, and we haven't seen much in that area. And I did paint one picture. I said, if you take one manufacturing sector and allow the flow of credit into it, say there is a vehicle. Now, if you are making 10,000 vehicles today in Nigeria and you allow credit to flow there, targeted, the impact it would have is that immediately you displace 400,000 second-hand cars coming from Cotonou every year. Immediately double, from 10,000 cars, you could go to 100,000 cars because people will put down 10% of the money required for the car and the credit delivers the remaining 90%. And if this credit is dollar, then it means that they can actually import their materials. So you could see tenfold increase in employment, and then you see the displacement effect of 400,000 cars entering the country. And then you can go and drop your car after a year and take a new one. And then, so that would change that dynamic. But I need to still see more action there. And then if you look at the 2 presidential orders that were given, one of them is to unlock, domesticate any money that is in the country, unlock it. That is a very good measure, but we have to see how it gets implemented. Then you told the other about the 2 presidential orders. So there are work in progress. There are measures that are coming in, but they will take finite time to deliver. So that's why I said we have to be a little more patient. They're not doing, you can't say that they're not doing anything. It's such a troubled situation in such a deep rot in terms of the infrastructure that very little, anything you do will not be that visible because the level of decay is so much that you're only using road now. Inland waterways are not being used in any way. Rail is truncated, so it is very, and then you have deep sea port opening up in Lekki, which would obviously help on congesting the port. But also you need to be able to evacuate that. So where are the rail infrastructure ready to evacuate? You have over 5 other deep sea ports that are on the works. So the important thing is that are we actually making infinitesimal project? The progress is being made. The policies are coming. You need to allow more time for some of these to gel. But
I'll just take this to Paul Alaje. Paul Alaje, the prophet talks about the need for patience, but we do know that because of the state of things, many in Nigeria are not that patient. They want to see action. The deep sea port opening up in Lekki, fantastic. But then there are other ports in Nigeria that have been shut down, and many would say those are the ports that should have been looked at so that you move traffic, reduce the traffic going to Lagos and spread it. There's the Port Harcourt, there's a Warri port, there's a Calabar port, I think there's a port in Port Harcourt as well. If these other ports are also activated, that would also reduce the pressure and the need to transport those goods that are coming in. But then that would also point to the fact that many of our water channels are not dredged. And so big ships can hardly find their way into some of this port. In the course of all the savings that are happening, especially from subsidy, do you think these are areas that some of this money should go into? I do know that the spokesperson to the president spoke to us on the 25th of December, and he talked about the credit facility that the president and his team are working on for Nigerians, and it's going to come from the savings from the subsidy. Also talked about how that savings will also go into the students' loan scheme. But I'm talking about opening up the port, since Prof pointed at the deep sea port that's opening up and how that will make a difference in our transportation system.
Yeah, thank you so very much. I can also tell you that we are losing approximately 3 trillion naira that would have been contributed to our economy from Blue Ocean Economy, the new ministry that have just been created by the president. And the revenue that would have gone to government from that sector, it's about 400 billion naira if it is properly managed. But we've lost all of those because of concentration to a large extent, over 80 or more % in the Lagos port. Not so much nothing is happening in Calabar and a few other places where I've seen, I don't know if you see very functional, what is the port in Port Harcourt. So, but generally speaking, not so much is happening in all of these ports. But let's assume this port is even perfect. Are we going to be enhancing production or are we going to be enhancing import? I know that even when we import and they are functional, we are going to be having some kind of revenue come to us. But how will this revenue trickle down to our people? And I would say that this is where we have to be solution-oriented. The port is important, we fix them and we need to make all of them work. But what is the point of having 40 teeth or 200 teeth that you cannot eat, a piece of meat? Here's the point. Nigeria to develop and for our ports to be functional, even if we fix them now, we need to take this economy away from economy that is import dependent to economy that is export oriented. And how will that happen? First, we need to have plantation in almost all the states, especially 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria. Looking at what these states have comparative cost advantage on in terms of plantation. And we already have people that can help us almost on regular basis. We don't need to look for new recruits. Of course, we need people to add to them. We need locals to join them. But we need to look at plantation. The second one is manufacturing, production. We cannot just look at only port without having an holistic plan. And that is why my advice to President Tinubu is before the end of February, he needs to have a team either to review the last national economic plan or to come up with an economic plan that will connect our factories to the market and rest of the world, our farms to the market and the rest of the world, and also in bringing investors to Nigeria. To come and invest on what? Just to bring money to the capital market or to bring money into our plantations, which I expect government to do, or to bring money into to manufacturing sector so that teaming youths, spread all over Port Harcourt, spread all over Lagos, spread all over Sokoto. If you want to construct any, no matter how small it is in Port Harcourt, you see a legion of people coming to meet you to give them money. They are not state actors. And it's as though that has been accepted. Within this, and I just use that state as an example. It's all across Nigeria today, even here in Lagos. You see some people say you have to give them money, which is not factored into the project you want to embark on. And these are things to worry about because when you go to some part of Africa, I've not seen this happen. I've not seen this happen in some Western countries, but just in Nigeria. How do we engage our strength? I've read in literature that our strength is not in the oil we have beneath our food. Our strength is in the number of young people that we have. But please, just walk around the streets and you see this legion of people roaming around. If we don't engage them in manufacturing and we don't engage them in infrastructure, it's going to be a big issue. But how will all of this come? The first thing first, why you're able to talk to me from Abuja and able to respond to you from Lagos is because we have energy. Energy is everything. Electricity must be available in sufficient amount, and the affordability of the same must be reasonable.
Okay, Mr. Alaje, let me come in here. You've brought everything down to where I started off with Professor Ife. We talked about looking inwards. Looking inwards, what are our areas of comparative advantage? We do know that Nigeria, across the different zones of this country, we had plantations that we have. I mean, rubber plantations, we have cocoa plantations, and till now we have palm oil plantations, we have all manner of plantations, pineapple growing in different parts of this country, different farms. But value addition is a problem in itself. But all of that, as you said, will require energy. And just before the last administration wound down, there was that, and the new Energy Act that was signed into law. At the end of the day, the states are now free to, on an amendment of the Constitution, the states are now free to invest in energy. Why do you think they're not taking advantage of this as quickly as they should? Besides Enugu State that seemed to have kicked up on its own, why do you think that many of these states are not keying into the opportunity or this opening to invest in energy and ensure that every part of their states is lit up?
Well, it's not part of the priority for most of the states. And the choice of leaders in Nigeria is not based on how the leaders have previously performed. Perhaps it depends on how popular, how financially prosperous these leaders are, how they are able to win electorate. Because whether we like it or not, at the end of the day, no matter how well we speak of economics, those who will make that decision really matters. If not, it's unheard of that at this time and age, Africa's largest economy, the economy that should understand that for the growth of the people, manufacturing is key, growth is key, plantation is key. If you go to Brazil, another economy that is the largest in South America, the focus of government now is plantation and manufacturing. In Asia, you either say either India or China, the focus of government in those two countries is how to improve manufacturing, agriculture and agro-processing. In South America, North America, of course, is the United States. In Eastern Europe, is Germany, agriculture and manufacturing. But in Nigeria, what is the focus? The focus is completely different. It's more into service, more into administration, and so on and so forth. So here is it. For us to get to that destination that many Nigeria hope for, whether remaining hope or renewed hope, this hope must be evident in manufacturing, it must be evident in plantation, it must be evident in production. If not, I hope it will not be hopeless.
Absolutely, and the need to look inwards, as Nelson said, to tap into the raw materials. I'm going to follow up on that with Professor Ife. I know that you've talked about the policies that the administration has introduced, the presidential orders, but we must recall that these policies, these reforms, date back to the last administration. I'm talking about the ease of doing business. But it appears as if the gains are few and far between. If you look at the MBS report for the Q1 of 2023, 28 out of 36 states did not attract foreign direct investment. And even in the second quarter, foreign direct investment dipped by 33%. So what's happening here, Professor Ife? Why are the gains not coming in spite of these reforms?
Well, I think it would be wrong to focus all your attention on foreign direct investment. We have domestic investors who are also connected to the foreign direct investment. Say, for example, one man has invested $19 billion, and that is more than the foreign direct investment of many years of our country. And there are some companies that are foreign companies in Nigeria that want to diversify. It is only when they diversify that you begin to see their foreign counterparts support their diversification strategy. But we can't rule out. We'll keep underplaying the role of domestic investment because they're already here with you. They are aware of the situation. They are struggling, and then you encourage them. They could do far more than spending your resources saying, unless you have that signal of foreign direct investment, and then don't look at the definition of foreign direct investment in the first place. So I don't want to place too much faith on that. It would be nice. It would be really nice if we can have those figures coming in billions. But that is not the end of the world, because you are misplacing your priority if you ignore the momentum of the domestic investments. That's one thing. Of course, there's some other hostages to that fortune called foreign direct investment. If you look at foreign portfolio investment, you also even have the same challenges too. They come in when you cough, they bugger off. You're not going to say, okay, because they are coming and going, then what happens? The world will stop. No, we have to factor the fact that they have a role to play, but that role is not decisive. Well, that's just what I have to say on this.
It's always good to look at all of the data, but we know that the president has been moving across the world trying to win investors over to the country. So I imagine that he's also has his eyes set on foreign investment and the rest. But as you said, it's important to look at all of the data. But I would like to thank you so much, gentlemen. Mr. Paul Alaje, I was going to ask, is there a way to maybe equip people with economic skills, because they can't keep looking up to government? There's unemployment, some people losing jobs, inflation is rising. Is there an advice you have for Nigerians for the new year, maybe, just to arm them?
Well, for those people that have work already, they have 9 to 5. I will just tell them that 9 to 5 will not be nice. What is fine is 5 to 9. That is, having one job.
That's for you and I.
Is not sufficient.
Well, we work more than 9 to 5.
You will need another job, because even your employer is not making more money. The value of money they make has reduced, and if they want to increase their price, there's market forces that will adjudicate price. So if you say because you're a single producer, you want to just increase your own because of economic crisis, what happens to your competitor? They may decide to bring their price, and some don't even mind if their business collapses, will collapse or not. They just want to have money today. That is why everybody, we need to adjust. Our concern as economists is just that as all of us are adjusting, we want to see our leaders demonstrate that adjustment, so that when we get to a better position, yeah, we are fine, we know we are at a comfortable place. 2, people need to learn new skills. You need to learn new skills. You need to learn on-site skills. There are remote jobs that you can do. Then organization always love for people that have these 4 attributes. Number 1, who can help us make more money? If you can help us make more money, in spite of all economic hardship, you will remain in the organization. 2, who can help us save more money? Tell your organization how you can help them save what they've lost this year, how you help them save it next year. Then you say that you'll be retained. 3, who can help our performance improve in the marketplace? Then you'll be retained. Number last, which is also very, very important, who can help us increase our market share? Market share is everything. If we are there, we are dominant in the market, then we are going to see you. Although that's microeconomics.
There you go, free of charge right here on Sunrise Daily. We'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Paul Alaje, Senior Economist, SPM Professionals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
As well as Professor Ken Ife, Development Economist and Lead Consultant, ECOWAS Commission. Prof, we need to have you on that personal economics conversation as well in the coming days, but we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And
thank you very much.
Our season yet again.
Thank you.
We'll go on a break now, and when we return, we'll focus on another major sector, how well it has fared this year. I tell you, you don't want to miss this. Stay with us.
In order to attract foreign investors, the government is already looking at the following areas to improve aviation business in Nigeria. Upgrading our infrastructure. For emphasis or elaboration, this includes upgrading the CAT-3 landing system at major airports, construction of the second runway in Abuja, which is about to commence right now, airport improvement programs through concession, and government willingness to partner with companies to turn major airports into aerotropolis. So we are looking at the aircraft leasing company. It's part of the roadmap. Government welcomes major players in aircraft leasing and head lessors to invest in Nigeria, airlines, to provide state-of-the-art aircraft. With the shortage of qualified engineers, the current administration is willing to provide all the necessary support for the establishment of world-class MROs and training organizations. We also look at the area of forex availability. The current administration is aware that one of the setbacks entrepreneurs have suffered in Nigeria in recent years is the fluctuation of foreign exchange and its availability. And then we do apologize, it has affected, most of the airlines that we have bases with, in Nigeria. It's one of the issues we actually went to sort out in the UAE. But this administration is committed to ensuring that forex is readily available to entrepreneurs, and I have directed, that's the president, I'm reading the president's speech, I've directed the Central Bank of Nigeria host quarterly reconciliation meetings with a view to resolve this issue.
Well, our previous conversation ties perfectly into the one we're about to have now, because the aviation sector operates within the confines of the economy. And you heard the minister there talking about forex, which is a big deal, really, particularly for the aviation sector. It's been an ongoing battle. But we'll take a look at that as well as other issues that concern that major sector this morning. As you can see, we're joined by Captain Ado Sanusi, MD CEO, Aero Contractors, former MD CEO, Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, joins us virtually from Mombasa this morning. It's good to have you on the program, Captain.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And right next to him, Mr. Bankole Bernard is an aviation expert, President, Association of Aviation Training Organization Nigeria, immediate past president of NANTA, and GMD Finchglow Holdings. Also great to have you, Mr. Bernard.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. So, as of the last count, over 2,000 licensed pilots in Nigeria with over 30 airports. And, the figures are there for us, and I imagine that it's even increased because of the last count for the NCAA, that was a 2019 figures, but it's, of course, since increased. But looking at 2023 for you, the aviation sector, yes, faced a lot of challenges, but how would you describe it as an insider? It's different from what people see on the outside. And I'll begin from Captain Ado Sanusi. What was the aviation sector like for you in 2023?
Well, again, thank you very much for having me, and compliments of the season. Looking at the year under review, what comes to mind as a professional and over 3 decades operating in the industry, I will see that the ineffectiveness of the regulator, which caused a lot of challenges during the year under review, 2023. We achieved a lot over the years, and we believe we should be building on top of what we have achieved. But unfortunately, due to the ineffectiveness and reactive nature of our regulators, we became proactive. And the year under review shows that with a series of incidences in our airports, with regulation being flagrantly just looked over, because they feel that the operators feel that the regulator is not that effective. And the implementation of the 2023 NCAS also creates a problem, because I don't think they have thought through the whole process of implementing that regulation, which says that airlines must have 6 airplanes before they start operation. Meanwhile, the infrastructure to support that regulation is not put in place. So those are the things that I think affected majorly the aviation industry, looking from the operator eye view. But in a bigger picture, the aviation industry, of course, has been affected by the economy of the country. As you mentioned, the dollar, the imports of the Jet A1, also so many things affected the aviation industry negatively. We can see that some airlines went under. Asman, for instance, caused to cease operation. And many more will go because of the hardship and the scarcity of foreign exchange, and also the taxation that has not been addressed. So the aviation industry continues to struggle in the year under review. And if nothing has been done to address these challenges, it will continue to struggle in the year 2024. And more airlines will go under while some will come up. And the same cycle, the same vicious cycle will continue, and we will not have a vibrant aviation industry because we are still thinking of doing the same thing and expecting different results. So going back to 2023, yes, we saw a decline in effective safety oversight, which resulted into a couple of incidences and which resulted into flight delays, flight cancellations, and even season of operation of some operators. The infrastructure, still, one of our runways is still closed in Lagos, which is the main airport in Nigeria, is still closed, not open. We experienced for the first time in the world that they are stealing approach lights in the airports. I mean,
Captain,
these are the challenges the aviation industry faced in 2023.
And
I
5
believe
months.
and I hope. Yes.
You can land on that point. Sorry. You believe and you hope.
I believe and I hope that the new administration coming in will make a difference. But if they go through the same problems or the same promises that we've been hearing, then probably we'll just have an industry that is on the way to collapsing.
Oh dear. I mean, we have to properly, segmentize this, because what matters to the flyers, the users, things like price, which we'll talk about now. Hundreds of thousands of naira is what will get you to and fro these days. And what used to cost, less than 50,000 naira? I mean, years back, that is. There's a quality of service. There's issues of flight delays and the rest. That's what matters to the users. But you touched on something really important, and that's the role of the regulator, which doesn't just matter to you as an operator, but also spills over to the users, because one can only imagine how mismanagement of the aviation sector, what it will cost. We all know what that means. And I'll take this to Mr. Bernard, because you've raised that very important point, and I'd like to get his thoughts, particularly on the issue of the regulator. The aviation sector is expected to be one of the most regulated. It's an irony if the regulator is not as effective, as proactive as it ought to be. Mr. Bernard, your thoughts first on the regulation part of the aviation sector and the regulator. What was the issue really? That's for you, Mr. Bernard, if you can hear me. Please unmute your device so we can hear you. Okay, we'll come back to Mr. Bernard just to tidy that up. But, Captain, I'd like you to expound on that one, because, as I said, regulation is key, and you of all people appreciate that more even than all of us that fly. So what were the areas where the regulator dropped the ball? And you talked about this administration hoping to do better, so that perhaps the minister is listening, other people in government are listening, such that they can know those areas to show up the regulator such that they're more effective and proactive?
Well, there are a couple of things. I mean, it's so many things that we have seen over the year, especially past 1 year. We have seen the regulator giving a kind of waivers that have never been given before in the aviation industry. We have seen the regulator giving a license to airlines that have not met the requirements to meet the the requirements for AOC, Operator's Certificate. We have seen the regulator keeping quiet when Air Nigeria was declared that it is ready to fly. We saw the regulator not coming out to say, no, it must follow that. So we've seen the regulator keeping quiet and being complacent when things have been done. And the regulator is not supposed to be politically correct. He's supposed to say the truth. He's supposed to regulate, as the case may be. So there are so many things that we have seen in the industry, whether the regulator kept quiet or whether the regulator gave a waiver, whether the regulator did something that makes we, the operators, feel, oh, so you can get away with that. And that's the reason why I said the regulator was not being proactive, rather he was being reactive. Today you ground an airline A, and tomorrow you say, no, he can fly. Well, in the first instance, why did you ground him without going through a proper investigation in the first instance, for example? And we see reversal of grounding of airplanes, of grounding of airlines. And that sent some kind of unsure signals and political interference in the regulatory agencies. So that is why I said there is no the regulator was not showing a more proactive stand, rather a reactive stand. When an incident happens, that's when they come in and ground or wave the big cane on the airlines or on the operator.
Well, speaking of this perceived inconsistency of the regulator, I wonder if, Mr. Bernard, you've been able to unmute now so that you can talk to us. Is this perhaps what's responsible for the mass sack of directors in the agencies in the aviation sector, which, by the way, some have described as, ill-advised and will put the sector at risk? Mr. Bankole Bernard, this is for you now. I'd like you to address this.
Okay, thank you very much. As you're all aware that the appointments are politically motivated, and definitely when you have a new administration, you see a sort of cleansing within the system. But we must understand that this is a very sensitive industry. It's not like every other industry that you apply search and you expect to get a fantastic result. Now we have new political appointees, and they're all there. They'll settle down. They will give their best. But again, how are we going to continue with the existing policies that it will support the growth of the industry? Personally, I have no problem with the individuals that have been appointed. But the question we should ask ourselves is this: are the policies being formulated by the government, are they in line that supports business growth? Are they in line that projects the industry for the future? I don't think so. And that's why you see us take a step backward and two steps a step forward and two steps backward. Let me say this to you so that for benefit of hindsight. Now, in 2022, we had a $75.5 billion as the budget for the aviation industry. In 2023, it was increased to $77.3 billion. In 2024, 63.3 is being projected. 63.3 is being projected. So there's a reduction in the budget. So you ask yourself, how do you expect a growth in this particular industry? An industry that has been badly affected by the devaluation of our currency. Because this is one industry that is highly dollarized. Everything is done with FX. Training of pilots, acquisition of aircraft spare parts, so many things. Even the aviation fuel. So what are we talking about? Are we serious as a government that wants to really move this industry forward? Check our airports. They are dilapidated. You can't find us in the top 100 airports in the world. Even in Africa, we're not in the top. None of our airports qualify to be in the top 10. It says a lot about us as a nation. We should stop paying lip service to what we intend to do and start to act. Until we get serious as a nation, we're not going to move forward. And this industry will continue to decay.
Mr.
We
Bernard,
have to get it right.
Mr. Bernard, your concerns are rightly noted, and you know, government officials will say that all the other sectors to have inadequate funding allocated to them, and besides, there are infrastructure renovation going on in a number of airports across the country, but you have not particularly addressed the question. All you have said was that, you know, the reappointments and the mass sack are politically motivated. I'd like you to speak to whether or not they are as a result of the botched Air Nigeria project and what impact it would have on the sector. Some have said that, you know, it will put the sector at risk because the erstwhile directors have been there for a long time and they have institutional memory that the new officials need to work with. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, like I said, and I'll repeat it again, the directors that were appointed, it's a political appointment. It's quite different from the civil service workers that are ensuring the day-to-day running of these different MDAs and agencies. All the new director needs to do with better commitment is to ensure that all the pending issues within the agency are properly addressed. I honestly feel that in an industry like ours that is very sensitive, when you do this kind of house cleansing, what you've done is you've thrown away a lot of knowledge, personnel that would have added value to the system. But I mean, this is government. They decide who they want to put there. They employ them, they sack them at will. So there's absolutely nothing we can do. But what we're saying is, let there be a sort of continuity in the approach. Mass sacking, what was the reason? Was it because of Air Nigeria or because they're not doing so well? There's no particular reason. And we're talking about a political government, which is the previous administration and this administration. I was expecting to see a sort of continuity. But cleaning the entire house and say we have to bring new people on board means that it's going to slow down the growth and the progress of the industry. So we need to have a rethink before such actions are taken. Was there something wrong? I think they probably deserve some sort of explanation. By the way, these were the same groups of directors that had a retreat with the existing minister. So everything that had been discussed at the retreat and the plans they've made, we thrown it away. So I wonder what the new appointees are coming. Are they going to have another retreat? Which brings me to another part of this discussion. When are we going to be accountable as a nation? When we'll start to hold ourselves accountable? We have to stop this wasteful spending. Because the directors that had the retreats are all gone. Now we have new directors. What insight are they going to have about the retreat that was held? It's going to be difficult for us as a nation to move forward. I don't see
that insight. Yes, thank you for that insight, Mr. Bernard. Speaking of accountability, let me bring this to you now, Mr. Captain Sanusi, and we're now turning our attention to the matter of Forex. The Minister of Aviation addressed this in the soundbite that we heard earlier when he said when he apologized for the trapped funds and said the CBN will be holding meetings subsequently over that. Is this progress on the worry about trapped funds of foreign airlines? And does it address fears that if not addressed, foreign airlines begin to exit the country?
Yeah, I think so. But let me touch on your last question and what my friend Bankole was trying to explain a bit. I am of the opinion that I think the minister found himself to choose between the devil and the blue sea. Is either to continue working with the directors that the agents, the yearning of the stakeholders was that these are not moving towards the policy, and they have derailed from the roadmap that was already being followed. So, and also some of them have conflict of interest. So he has to make changes. If he didn't make those changes, the stakeholders in the aviation industry will cry that, look, this is what we're saying. So I think he made a choice of making the changes. Look, there is nothing wrong with changes. I mean, it is very good to make changes. That is what life is about, change. So I think the fact that there was a cleansing of the directors and other officials, executive officials of the aviation sector, I think we should give them a chance and see what they can do, and try and work with them and make them understand the more important part of the role they're supposed to play in the aviation sector. Now, talking about the trapped funds for the foreign airlines, it is extremely important that it gets attention from the highest level. What the minister has said is welcome development. It will give the airlines, the foreign airlines, some, I think, some rest of mind that somebody is attending to it. But believe me, it's getting too close to $1 billion. Over the last I saw was about $700 million. These are monies that Nigerians paid to buy tickets in Naira, and they're supposed to repatriate this money in dollars. And this has not been done. I believe that we should take it serious as a country. I believe it should be addressed immediately, and a program or a plan should be made to liquidate all that, and then make sure that we don't trap funds of foreign airlines. I'm a total believer that the airlines should be given their money as quickly as possible. Now, if we don't do that, what are the consequences? The consequences will be some of the airlines will start withdrawing their services into Nigeria. What? I mean, some people say they want. Of course, the tickets fares will rise. Those that have to travel outside the country will have to pay more. And Nigeria cannot operate in isolation. We have to travel out of the country. We have to come into the country. And the tickets must be affordable. Now, if the tickets are not affordable, the investors coming in will pay more. And when they come to invest, they will also have to factor that into their investment. And some will not even come. The investors will not come. The investors don't come by sea. They don't come by road. They come by air. So if it is very difficult to come into your country, that is one of the key factors. They will think that, well, Nigeria is a difficult country to invest. So I believe it's a total ecosystem that it must be looked from the highest level of the government and addressed quickly. Yeah.
And I'm wondering, what your recommendations would be, for a program that would be set up to address the whopping more than $700 billion of trapped air funds, airline funds. But I'm sure that my colleague Nyota has questions for you in that regard. Nyota.
Thank you very much, Bukola. Captain Sanusi, you said something earlier that, let me take it up from there. You said the regulator isn't supposed to be politically correct. We do know that by the new act, the 2022 Act of the Aviation Industry, the NTA, who is the regulator here, is supposed to be, is autonomous. And he clearly stated that he's autonomous. But in playing with the stakeholders and working with the stakeholders, all the stakeholders, including you, the NTA has had its own issues as regards how the stakeholders even relate with the regulator as regards carrying out its responsibilities. Would you say that the stakeholders have been doing their own part?
Well, if everybody has played its part, but as I said in the beginning, that the regulator is not supposed to be politically correct, and of course, we, the operators, too, have played our own role in making the regulator to be politically correct, because we sometimes keep quiet when we know that the regulator should voice out the opinion or clarify an action the regulator has taken. As far as it doesn't affect the particular operator, he keeps quiet because he feels that, well, it's not his problem, but it's the problem of the entire system. If a regulator, if you see something that is wrong, even though it doesn't affect you and you do not mention it, of course you are accomplice to that something that has been wrong. And so we, including myself, are guilty of allowing the regulator to act politically correct in 2023. Because I said it in this interview several times that there's no way Air Nigeria will fly with the certain things that we have seen in place before the May 29 deadline. But the regulator didn't come out to say that, no, it's not possible because he has not done the demonstration flight, he has not done this, he has not done that. Everybody kept quiet. And when an AOC was given to another airline, everybody kept quiet. The guy did not do demo flights. Everybody kept quiet. So those are the things that accumulate, and then they manifest into incidents, because they manifest into incident and, God forbid, into accident. But with this recent changes, I believe we will galvanize ourselves and make sure that we don't go down the drain of collapse, because if we don't, this is the only industry we have.
Let's look at those recent changes, for instance. I mean, your colleague and friend, Mr. Bernard, talked about the fact that the new changes, the new appointments that have taken place will kind of like slow down the advance that the aviation industry should have been making. Because one of the challenges that industry has had is bad management, a lack of a coherent transport policy in that sector, decrepit infrastructure. Again, your colleague, Mr. Bankole Bernard, mentioned some of these things. And Mr. Bernard, will come to you to make your own contributions on it. But Captain Sanusi, if you say the recent changes would help make that difference, there are those who will be wondering, to what effect? So how long would the air travelers in Nigeria have to wait to see the effect? Because right now, the cost of transport, of traveling by air, is out there. And of course, it's one of the fastest and safest, as they say. But this challenge is still there. So how do we get to this point where the air travelers in Nigeria can begin to breathe?
Well, it is the safest and the fastest travel. Not as they say, it is actually the safest and the fastest way of traveling. I don't think Nigerians will see any change, even if we change all the workers of the aviation industry, the parastatals. They will not see any change in the ticket fares, because ticket fares has nothing to do with the workers, the directors, the GMs, the chief executive officers. What we are going to see recently maybe is a more efficient parastatal working to achieve the goals the minister set out to the new appointees. But for ticket fares, I believe the only way the ticket fares will come down is if the cost of operation is reduced drastically. And how do you reduce? There are fixed costs and there are variable costs. So you have to tinker with the variable costs. The fixed costs, you can do very little about that. So the variable cost, the cost of Jet A1, the personnel costs, the cost of repairs, maintenance, all that, you need to tinker with them. And of course, all boils down to the cost of foreign exchange. To Naira. That's the dollar to the naira going to come down. Now, bear in mind that some of the airlines have taken the advantage of the high demand in travel during this season, during this festive season. They have taken that advantage to increase their fares. They will reduce their fares because people cannot afford to continue to pay those huge amount of money to travel, and the demand will be very low. So you will see a slight decrease in 2024, January, February, March, because those are the months that airlines struggle. So you will see a bit of reduction. And if the dollar to naira exchange rate stabilize, you will see a stable rate throughout the year of tickets. Probably if there's a new entrant into the market, you might see a slight delay, a decrease in ticket fares.
Okay, Captain Sanusi, I'll just have to come in here and take it to Mr. Bernard because we're almost out of time. One of the things that has been a challenge to the aviation industry is the multiple taxations. Yes, you talked about efficiency. We'll see a bit more of efficiency in all of this. But Mr. Bernard, in all of this, new management, a hope that there will be a reduction
in the government. Oh, the funds are trapped with CBN. Has anybody gone as far as finding out how much of this even foreign airline funds are trapped with CBN? How much of the money is sitting with the commercial banks? The commercial banks are taking advantage of the system. They could see that, yes, this particular industry, their needs effect. So what do? Is the highest bidder that they will go with. So that constantly makes because the demand of FX is high, it constantly makes them offer more naira to get their funds that are trapped out. Now, the airline will continue to edge against the rate that is being populated on a daily basis. If I sell a ticket today at an exchange rate of 950 naira to $1, and in 30 days that I need to remit the money out of the country, the dollar is already doing at 1.20. As an airline, I've lost out. So the government needs to really look into the issue of these trust funds. The so-called trust fund, where is it? Is it with the CBN or is it with the commercial bank? I think by the time the government investigates, they will get to the root of the matter. But the government has shown little or no concern about this. That's number one. Now, the aviation fraud that we're talking about, what is the government doing about it?
All right, Mr. Bernard, quite a number of very germane issues you have raised about Forex and now aviation fuel. But we have to wind down now because of time. But just before we go, Captain, the minister says that airlines will begin to pay compensation for flight disruptions, cancellations, and delays. Are you ready for that? January, in a matter of 3 days.
Pay compensation.
That's for Captain, yes, Captain Sanusi.
Yes, so we do already pay compensations and delays for flight cancellations or delays. What I just want us to understand is we are not inventing the wheel. I mean, it is everywhere in the world. So let us not put a kind of honey into the mouth of passengers. That, when there is a delay, you are going to pay. If the delay is caused by the parastatals, fine, for instance, or is caused by NCA inspectors inspecting the airplane, who pays for that delay? So we must put an infrastructure in place that will definitely know that it's the airline that is responsible for this delay. Then we can now say this is the procedure to compensate for that delay. But it will be chaotic, believe me. if I have a flight that's supposed to leave, and because of congestion at the tarmac or congestion at the check-in counter, and I could not depart for 1 hour, 2 hours because of the infrastructure of FAAN,
all right,
who pays for the delay? Or if I have an airplane that was supposed to be released by Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority and the inspectors are still doing their job, and the delay comes out to be 3-4 hours more than what I expect the inspectors to finish their work, who pays for that delay? Or if I'm supposed to get a weather report from an airport A or airport B, and NIMET did not give me that weather because the person did not come to work in time, and I was delayed for 3-4 hours because I have to wait for the weather to come back, to come
Captain,
to me before I depart.
We have to run now. But essentially you're saying it's not just the airlines that should bear liability, even the government agencies responsible should also... Are you saying they should pay compensation? Absolutely. Well, we have to go. We have to go right now. We have to thank you so much, Captain Addison, the CMD CEO, Aero Contractors, as well as Mr. Bankole Bernard, aviation expert, president of Association of Aviation Training Organization, Nigeria. Gentlemen, thank you for your time and compliments of the season once again.
Thank you for having me. Compliments of the season too.
Whew. So there you go. What a show it's been, Bukola. But we have to run now.
Yeah, whether it's NIMET, whether it's FAAN that bears liability, the passengers should get compensation. That's what's important. Can't resist the urge to add that. Well, that's been the program today. Thank you so much for watching. Join us again, same time tomorrow. I am Bukola Koka.
I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
And we do know that we got your messages, Olagunju and Co. Do thank you so much. We'll take them tomorrow, definitely, but we want to appreciate you and go out there and be the best of you. I'm Neo Taigwe. Bye-bye.